So I thought when I was preparing this presentation, usually I do a lot of public speaking, but it is to an audience that is very familiar to insurance and all its problems. So I decided that today I'm going to give you a 30-second introduction into insurance. And essentially, I will start with the London fire of 1666. So insurance is a very simple idea. When it started 300 years ago, it was very powerful. It was a social idea about sharing risk among people and making risk bearable. And somehow we went from this very simple and powerful and social idea based on principles of solidarity into something that looks a lot more like that. The journey got very complicated, very complex, with lots of players. There's a lot of opacity and a lot of friction in the insurance value chain today. So when we speak about InsurTech, what are we trying to address? Well, we're trying to address that. We're trying to transform that journey from risk to capital into a leaner, quicker, more transparent and sustainable journey. So InsurTech took off a couple of years ago. I started looking into it in 2014. Back then, we didn't even agree on how to spell it. So you had an E there, an insure, and there was not a lot going on in terms of investment. And as you can see, in the past 7 years, and this is a continuous trend into 2022, the explosion in terms of funding and in terms of investments, not only from outside the industry, which you will see here, but from inside the industry, was tremendous. And after a very difficult year in 2020 with the pandemic, no one really knew what was going on with what was going to happen. And we went into 2021. In the first half of 2021, we already had reached the amount of spending and investment into InsurTech than the previous year. And then we doubled it. And in total, in the past 7 years, the cumulative investment has been of around 41 billion US dollars. And this is true for both life and non-life insurance. We had a lot of mega rounds in the past year, 13 in the second quarter, 15 in the fourth quarter, and some of these deals were at the 2.5 billion. So it was really a year where we realized the investment and the amount of interest into the space was not going to go down. So if we look at the amount of investment and its growth, it begs the question, why is this happening? Why is this going on? And what are we trying to change? And essentially, we talk about several drivers that are trying to change an industry that is very old, as in 300 years old. It is very stagnant. It has been stagnant. It has, the amount of innovation that we could do in the industry is huge, but the inertia is very high. And essentially, when we look at some external shocks like the pandemic last year, we can see that they accelerate certain areas of the value chain and their innovation, and most of them have to do with the customer centricity, with new products, with new ways of sharing risk, with new ways of mutualizing risk, with accessing new markets, with generating new data. So what is the tech that we're using? Well, essentially, all of those technologies are prevalent in InsurTech, but those that are most used are big data and high-performing algorithms, cloud, and mobile type of technologies. The other ones are present, but they're very peripheral or experimental. What do we think happened in the past 10 years? Well, there was a consolidation. There was a geographical spread, which started being US dominance changed. And we went into a mode where there was a lot more collaboration between incumbents and industry giants, big tech giants from outside the industry, and the startups. So does this take us to InsurTopia, and are we close to what we envisioned? Hardly. There is a lot to do. There has been a lot of stability in areas, even like distribution, where a lot of investment has been done. So there's still a lot to do. And I think, the most important thing is when you look at technology and you're trying to change an industry, it's not really about the technology, it's about the problem you're trying to solve. This is one of the key principles of design thinking. And in the case of the industry of insurance, what we're trying to solve has a different, has different time horizons, and some things are more immediate and others really are about changing the business model. So we have to bear that in mind when we look at how these industries will change, these technologies will change the industry. So how do we approach this, and how do we approach using technology to shortening the risk to capital journey? Well, essentially, as a stack of different types of modularization. So we had Baptiste today talking about Web3, fractional ownership of assets. Well, actually, you can also have fractional ownership of risk. But if you want to be able to distribute risk more evenly and use capital to fund that risk and transfer that risk more evenly, then you have to be able to modularize it and stack it before that. So our risk to capital journey is being modularized, and we're using technology to improve and leverage the different things that can be done in the context of modularizing the journey. So this is a process that's evolutionary. It's not going to happen overnight. We are a very inert industry. It takes a lot of time to change things, but it is based on the same principle as mostly everything around innovation. We're deconstructing the risk, we're deconstructing the value chain, we're deconstructing the processes, the products, and the risk itself to reconstruct it in a way that is more aligned with what we can do with technology today. And in that sense, squeeze that risk to capital journey, make it more accessible, and make it less frictionful, and therefore cheaper and more efficient. One of the key areas to do that is collaboration. You need collaboration in the ecosystem, and it has been a consistent theme. So I think on that we're all aligned. And with that, my minutes are up. So I'll leave you with that idea.